Imagine you're a priest, torn from your homeland, standing beside a muddy irrigation canal in Babylon, and the heavens crack open. You see something no prophet has ever seen outside the land of Israel, the throne of God moving toward you on wheels of fire. This is how the book of Ezekiel begins, and it changed everything about how people understood where God could be found. To understand what Ezekiel saw, we need to understand where he was standing and what he'd lost. The year is 593 BCE. Ezekiel is a Jewish priest living beside the river Chebar, an irrigation canal of the Euphrates, in a community of exiles deported to Babylon. He was trained for temple service in Jerusalem, the one place on earth where God's presence was believed to dwell. In the ancient Near East, gods belonged to specific lands and specific temples. Being exiled didn't just mean losing your home, it meant being cut off from your God. The theological crisis was existential. If Yahweh lives in the Jerusalem temple and we are in Babylon, has God abandoned us? Then the heavens opened. Ezekiel's vision begins at the bottom with raw elemental power, a stormy wind from the north, a massive cloud, flashing fire. This is a theophany, a visible manifestation of God, and it borrows the imagery of ancient storm god appearances. But Ezekiel repurposes that imagery for Yahweh. Out of the fire emerge 4 living creatures. Each has a human body but 4 faces: human, lion, ox, and eagle. They represent the fullness of animate creation, moving as one. Beside the creatures, gleaming wheels. The Hebrew word is ophanim. Wheels within wheels, shining like beryl, capable of moving in any direction without turning. This throne is not stationary. It goes wherever it wills. Above the creatures stretches a vast dome, a crystal firmament gleaming and terrible. Above the firmament, a sapphire throne, and seated on the throne, the semblance of a human form, gleaming like amber from the waist up, encased in fire from the waist down, surrounded by radiance like a rainbow. This is the Kavod, the glory, the manifest presence of God. Ezekiel was a priest. He knew the Kavod traditions intimately. In Exodus 24, the Kavod settled on Mount Sinai, cloud and fire marking God's presence on a mountain. In Exodus 40, the cloud filled the tabernacle, God's presence in a tent. Now in Ezekiel 1, the Kavod appears in Babylon on a mobile throne-chariot. Same glory, radically different location. God's presence has left the fixed sacred sites and come to the exiles. But Ezekiel doesn't just describe what he sees, he describes the impossibility of describing it. Look at his language. He doesn't say he saw God. He says he saw the Mare Demut Kavod Yehuch, the appearance of the semblance of the presence of the Lord. Each Hebrew word adds a layer of distance. Kavod, God's glory, the manifest weight of divine presence. Demut, a semblance or likeness of that glory. Not the thing itself, but a representation. Mare, the appearance or vision of that semblance, what Ezekiel's human eyes could perceive. 3 layers of hedging, deliberate theological caution. Ezekiel insists he saw something real. He also insists that what he saw cannot be directly perceived or named. This paradox, revelation that simultaneously conceals, runs through every vision in the book. The most transcendent depiction of God in the entire Hebrew Bible comes wrapped in language that says, you cannot get there from here, you can approach layer by layer, but the center remains beyond reach. Now God speaks and addresses Ezekiel as Ben Adam, son of man. Forget everything you've heard about son of man as a title of power. In Ezekiel, it means the opposite. Ben Adam means son of Adam, a mortal human being made of dust. God uses this title over 90 times in the book, and the juxtaposition is deliberate and devastating. On one side, the Kavod, radiant, enthroned above a crystal dome, described only in layered approximations. On the other, a finite, displaced exile, flat on his face, addressed as a creature of earth. The most transcendent vision demands the most humble recipient. Then comes the commission. A hand extends toward Ezekiel, holding a scroll inscribed on both sides with lamentations, dirges, and woes. God commands him to eat it, to take the message into his body. He does, and it tastes sweet as honey. The content is devastating. The taste is sweet. That's the paradox of prophetic calling. Receiving God's word is a gift, even when the message is judgment. Ezekiel then receives his role, Sophe, a watchman. He must stand on the wall and give warning. If he warns the people and they ignore him, their fate is their own responsibility. If he fails to warn them, their blood is on his hands. So what did this vision ultimately mean, not just for Ezekiel, but for the entire future of monotheistic faith? Ezekiel's throne-chariot answered the deepest crisis of the exile. Has God abandoned us? No. God's throne has wheels. The Kavod is not a static presence locked in a building. It is a dynamic, mobile glory that meets people wherever they are. This single theological move made possible the survival of Judaism beyond the destruction of the temple. Without it, there is no synagogue worship, no diaspora theology, no framework for encountering God outside a sacred building. Christianity and Islam both inherit this idea. Divine presence is not imprisoned in one place. The two poles established in chapter 1, divine transcendence and human mortality, create the tension that runs through the entire book of Ezekiel. Every oracle, every symbolic action, every vision operates in the space between an incomprehensible God and a fragile, morally accountable human being. The Kavod will depart the temple in chapter 10. It will return in chapter 43. Between those moments, judgment, exile, and the slow, painful education of a people learning that God is both farther and closer than they imagined, Ezekiel didn't find God in the temple, he found God in Babylon, riding a throne with wheels, wrapped in fire, speaking to a mortal man. The Kavod was mobile, the prophet was accountable, and that changed everything.